Hello, I'm Alexis, 29 years old, and I navigate a delicate balance between my professional life at home and in the office. My husband, Bruce, who shares my age, has a deep affection for his mother, Doris. Unfortunately, Doris often treats me unkindly, which adds tension to our relationship. Despite these challenges, Bruce and I recently celebrated our second wedding anniversary, and I take pride in managing the complexities that come with it. Work has become my sanctuary, providing both an escape and a sense of fulfillment, leading to several promotions, an accomplishment not often seen among women in my field. Currently, I'm on a business trip in Europe for crucial meetings. During one of these meetings, my phone, which was on silent, vibrated insistently, a sign that something unusual was happening. I noticed 5 missed calls from Doris and felt a wave of concern. Thinking it might be an emergency, I decided to step outside to return her call. Just as I was about to dial, she called again. "Hello, Alexis, where are you?" she demanded, her annoyance evident. I hesitated, disliking her tone, but responded, "Hi, Doris, I'm in a meeting. Is everything okay?" "Where are you?" she repeated, impatience dripping from her words. Though her demeanor irritated me, I was determined to avoid confrontation. "I'm sorry, Doris. Didn't Bruce tell you? I'm on a business trip and can we talk later?" "Bruce mentioned it, but what are you doing leaving your house and husband alone?" "Come home immediately," she insisted, her abruptness as usual. "I can't leave right now. I'm in the middle of something important," I began to explain, but she cut me off. "You're so controlling, even though you're just Bruce's wife. I don't care about your excuses. Come home right now." Her sharp words stung, but I needed to keep my composure for the sake of my professional responsibilities. "Do you realize the significance of today?" I asked, bewildered. "Oh, you really don't know?" She smirked slightly. "We're celebrating my 62nd birthday today." Her tone dripped with expectation and triumph, catching me off guard. I remembered her birthday was later in the month, and this revelation was particularly surprising since I was on a business trip. Bruce and I had planned a special dinner at an upscale restaurant to celebrate her milestone. I was growing weary of Doris's incessant attempts to control every situation, which seemed to escalate every year, especially when I was busy with work. "As I mentioned, I can't come back home today. I'm away on business," I explained calmly. "That's amusing," she shot back sarcastically. "I spoke to Bruce earlier, and he's taken the day off for me. All the relatives will be there. But you're always buried in work. You seem so detached. How do you think that makes your husband's family feel?" Her words were meant to hurt, and I knew engaging further would only escalate the situation. Since I was still in a meeting, I had little choice but to end the call. "I'm sorry, but I can't attend your birthday celebration today," I said firmly. Doris's tone shifted, frustration evident in her voice. "Fine then. I won't consider you part of the family anymore. Don't bother coming back. It's like a divorce. Bruce deserves better." Her sharp remarks left me angry and distressed, but I refused to escalate the argument over the phone. "All right, we can discuss this when I get back. I'm sorry, but I need to go now," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. "What's with that attitude?" Doris snapped back. "I told you not to come back. I'll talk to Bruce myself." With that, she hung up. Exhausted from my interaction with my mother-in-law, I returned to my meeting, letting out a deep sigh. After 3 grueling days of back-to-back meetings, I finally headed home, my mind consumed with anger and frustration from the confrontation with Doris. I barely registered the drive, lost in my thoughts. When I opened the front door and called out, my husband Bruce greeted me with a weary, "Welcome back." I slipped off my heels and made my way into the living room, leaving my luggage by the entrance. There, surrounded by a sea of cardboard boxes, I found Bruce, visibly sweating as he sealed them with tape. "What's with all the boxes?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Bruce explained that they contained my belongings. He went on to recount how, during Doris's 62nd birthday celebration, the very day she had called me, she announced to everyone that I had neglected her birthday and been rude on the phone. To my shock, she told the relatives that she wanted me divorced and sent back to my parents' house because I wasn't a suitable match for her son. This was classic Doris. I pressed Bruce for more details. "And then what happened? Did your mother tell you to get a divorce and you just agreed to it?" "No, I didn't exactly agree," Bruce replied, his voice weary. "But she insisted I pack up your stuff." I felt cornered. What was I supposed to do? He paused his packing, looking defeated. What do you mean you didn't argue with her? Does this mean you're okay with the idea of us getting a divorce? My confusion and frustration were mounting. Bruce then shared that his father, Russell, had sided with Doris, telling him, "If Doris is upset, it'll be hard on you. It's best to just do what she says." Bruce had reluctantly gone along with the idea of a divorce, leaving me stunned by how easily he seemed to accept his mother's demands. "What is wrong with your family?" I pondered aloud. "Your father is dominated by your mother, and you just blindly obey her too." I felt utterly alone, as if no one was standing by me. After a long silence, Bruce finally spoke. "What my mother decides is final, but it's only until she calms down and things settle. This divorce isn't real. I'll come for you when things get better." His eyes pleaded with me for understanding, and I wished he would direct that pleading towards his mother instead. How could a grown man like Bruce be so fearful of his mother? I thought, a mix of disappointment and disbelief washing over me. It felt like there was no salvaging this situation. I nearly felt ashamed as I questioned what I had ever seen in him. As I processed everything, I realized this might be an unexpected opportunity for liberation. Staying with Bruce meant facing Doris's antagonism and her constant insinuations about divorce. Parting ways might actually turn out to be a stroke of good fortune. I was more than capable of supporting myself, and living alone wouldn't mean deprivation of any kind. With this newfound clarity, I faced Bruce and said firmly, "Let's proceed with the divorce." After that, I dialed Doris's number. After several attempts, she finally answered. "Hello," I said softly. "As you wish, we're getting a divorce," I informed her. To my surprise, Doris's voice was unnaturally cheerful as she replied, "Yes. Finally, you realize you're not good enough for Bruce. I'm so relieved. Don't worry, I'll find him a new wife, someone obedient, pretty, and nice to her in-laws." Her words dripped with a misplaced sense of victory as she added, "I'm sure Bruce will be just fine. I'll take care of him until he finds his next wife. You don't need to worry about that." Enduring her barrage of sarcasm, I retorted, "Well, don't misunderstand. It's not just about you." Still buoyed by her mood, Doris snapped back, "Oh, you're just a sore loser. Don't worry about me or Bruce, Alexis. I got the divorce papers from the city office and gave them to Bruce. Don't forget to sign them." With that, she hung up. Bruce, who had overheard my conversation, looked oddly relieved. This prompted me to question his awareness of the situation. "By the way, does your mother know you're actually a full-time house husband?" "How could I tell her that?" he replied, his tone turning serious. "My mother is obsessed with the idea that I'm a high-ranking employee at a big company." "Right," I acknowledged, reflecting on his behavior. It dawned on me that Bruce had never been transparent with Doris. At home, he lounged in worn-out sweatshirts but switched to a suit whenever he met her, pretending to be at work whenever she called. Alisa had proudly proclaimed at her birthday party that Bruce was such a devoted son, taking time off just to be there. She also boasted about his supposed status, claiming he could easily find a more obedient and attractive wife than me. This facade, maintained for the sake of appearances, was part of the bizarre dynamics that had steered our relationship to this point. The truth's revelation seemed inevitable once our divorce was finalized, but Doris, who held her son in such high esteem, would likely never anticipate that Bruce was no longer employed at the prestigious company he once worked for. In fact, he had left that job about a year ago. What Doris perceived as her elite, high-status son was now an unemployed, full-time house husband. Bruce's departure from his job stemmed from a significant mistake that led to a demotion, a pay cut, and a formal apology. He had likely kept this hidden from his mother, fearing her reaction. The setback had a profound effect on him, especially given Doris's tendency to coddle him. The mere thought of returning to an office environment and facing the repercussions of his error triggered immense anxiety and nausea. Initially, he tried to manage the situation by reporting his absences and requesting paid leave. But eventually, he stopped calling altogether. As his unauthorized absences piled up, he was terminated. Now, without any intention of seeking new employment, Bruce relied heavily on my income, knowing that sharing this with Doris would unleash both her fury and disappointment. I felt a twinge of regret at the thought of not witnessing Doris's reaction upon discovering her son's situation after my departure. I imagined she would be utterly shocked, perhaps even to an extreme degree. However, that was no longer my concern. When Bruce handed me the divorce papers, he mentioned that they were merely a facade to appease his mother. "Okay," I said, processing the information. I promptly filed the papers and signed a lease for a new apartment, planning to move out as soon as possible. A month later, to my surprise, Doris called. Despite believing I had severed ties for good, curiosity got the better of me, and I answered, "What do you want now? Aren't you happy to be rid of me?" I asked, my voice tinged with sarcasm. "You're still the same. Just listen to me," Doris replied, her tone unchanged. As she spoke about Bruce, she revealed that since my departure, she had visited his apartment multiple times to help with chores, only to find him idly lounging in his room each time, with no indication of going to work or being ill. Suppressing a laugh, I responded nonchalantly, "Well, Bruce is like that because he has no intention of working again." Doris, seemingly oblivious to her role in the situation, shockingly asked, "Alexis, can you do something about it?" "Why should I? You didn't want me in your family and wanted nothing to do with me," I retorted. It was so typical of her to ask for help only when it suited her after having mistreated me for so long. The irony of the situation was not lost on me, and I felt a sense of vindication as I realized the full extent of her self-inflicted predicament. Doris then tried to pin the blame on me. "I was wondering if you said something to Bruce before you left." I was incredulous at her insinuation. "Really, Doris? You think I married Bruce just for a luxurious life? Why would the divorce hurt if that were true?" She eyed me suspiciously as if I had married Bruce solely for his wealth. "Are you kidding me? I was the one supporting Bruce financially throughout our marriage. It was me providing for him, not the other way around. Because of him, I couldn't even afford to live extravagantly," I continued, the thought crossing my mind of whether I should consider asking for alimony. Doris was taken aback by my statement. "How dare you make up something like that, Alexis? You just forgot to ask for alimony, didn't you? Bruce has a higher income and position than you. Don't be so unreasonable. If you want money, Bruce can pay whatever you want. After all, he is a high-level employee at a major company," she retorted, her argument as preposterous as ever. Perhaps Bruce had yet to tell her the truth. I didn't want to seem like I was merely gossiping. But I saw an opportunity to set the record straight. "Your proud son is a full-time house husband. He quit his job a long time ago," I revealed. "You're lying," Doris shouted, her voice so loud that I winced, fearing for my eardrums. Pulling the phone away from my ear, I suggested, "Why don't you check with his company? You'll find out who's telling the truth." Doris went silent for a moment, then her tone noticeably softened. "Well, what if that's true? How are we going to manage? I can't support my son on just my pension, and no one will want to marry him if he's unemployed. What are we going to do?" I couldn't help but grin at her sudden change of heart. "What shall we do?" I echoed, amusement lacing my voice. After a pause, she mumbled something to someone beside her, then, with a completely altered tone, she pleaded, "Hey, Alexis, will you please come back home?" Her sudden shift puzzled me, but I replied firmly, "No, we're already divorced. I wouldn't come back to your family if heaven and earth turned upside down." The finality in my voice marked the end of that chapter as I moved on from the convoluted ties that had bound me. As I spoke to Doris, a commotion erupted in the background. Someone was shouting. It sounded like Bruce. His voice cut through the noise. "I told you I'd come for you when things settled down." Doris quickly responded, "Yes, you could remarry my son if you want it." "What are you talking about?" I asked, baffled. "No way. I wouldn't do it for the world." "Don't joke about this." I made it clear to Doris that I had no interest in rekindling anything with her son or entangling myself in any more toxic dynamics. I was done with someone who was overly devoted to his mother. "I did what you asked, so please stop changing your mind," Doris retorted. But the tension was palpable, even through the phone. "It's not like you should take my words so seriously. You've been quite dismissive, haven't you?" she added. "I didn't think you'd go through with divorcing my son." Her tone revealed her surprise at my firm rejection. In response to Doris's string of excuses, I replied, "Well, I was just tolerating the situation. Besides, Bruce packed up my things and essentially kicked me out without my consent." I vented my frustration, listing all that she had orchestrated against me. "That was just a prank," she claimed nonchalantly. "A prank? It's worse than that," I said, utterly exasperated. There was nothing more to be said. Glancing at my watch, I noted it was nearly 2:00 p.m. My lunch break had been squandered on this fruitless conversation. "Ah, Doris, are you done now?" I asked, eager to wrap things up. "Alexis, what did you say?" she replied, her voice sickeningly sweet. Did she think a sweet tone would soften my response? Knowing that I wouldn't meet her expectations, I said firmly, "I'm going to hang up now. I have another meeting in a few minutes and need to review some documents." As I began to disconnect the call, Doris persisted. "Wait, Alexis. Hey, Alexis, say something." I could hear her shouting as I hung up, leaving the chaos and unwelcome entreaties behind me. I was ready to move forward, free from the turmoil that had entangled me for too long. During the chaos of our phone call, Doris took the opportunity to berate Bruce, chiding him for mishandling the situation and pointing out the consequences of his actions. It became evident as she was quick to blame everyone else for her troubles. Completely drained by her behavior, I ended the call and decided to block her number for good. Afterward, Bruce tried repeatedly to reach me. Seeing a clear path forward, I consulted my lawyer about seeking alimony. Faced with the prospect of legal action, Bruce's family, likely anxious about the ramifications, agreed to settle the alimony in a lump sum payment. It seemed my former in-laws had to advance the money, which left Russell and Doris constantly agitated with Bruce. They urged him daily to find a job, which only added to his frustrations. Ultimately, Bruce moved back into his parents' house because he could no longer afford his apartment rent. He blamed his parents for his situation, which strained their finances, including their pension and retirement savings. Like mother, like son, they continued to blame each other for their predicaments while refusing to reflect on their contributions to the mess they were in. They were even considering applying for welfare, a move I hoped would make them realize that their selfish behavior couldn't continue indefinitely. On a brighter note for me, the business proposal I made during my trip was accepted, leading to a significant contract. This achievement resulted in another promotion, a higher salary, and a more affluent lifestyle. Now, enjoying the freedom of a rich bachelor's existence, I was relieved to be free from the torment of in-laws and financial dependence on family members. Reflecting on the past, if I ever considered marriage again, I would undoubtedly conduct a thorough background check to avoid any mama's boys or troublesome in-laws.